Hey, it's Andre Johnson here for one of our deal finders, Frank Trachta. And Frank is going to be sharing with you his story and journey from meeting Frank at the Think Realty Expo about a year ago to now Frank joining our deal finders team and having success as a new investor, understanding how to prospect and follow up with sellers. And Frank recently got his first wholesale deal done. So Frank, why don't we just share with folks watching this video your story about how you got that first wholesale deal done. So let's start with, you signed up for Deal Finders, and what was your interest in real estate? Why did you sign up for Deal Finders?
Well, I've had an insurance agency for a lot of years and still do, but I wanted to have another kind of a challenge, and I've had exposure to the real estate world. I've done some wholesaling, I've done some rehabbing, but when I went to the meeting downtown Baltimore, I had a chance to visit a bunch of different groups, and Andre's group was very informative. It seemed like a real challenge, so I pursued going to his meetings and signed up, and it's worked out, and I enjoy doing it.
We talked, you saw a presentation, our Deal Finders presentation, about how Deal Finders is a co-wholesaling program, how we help investors to find deals. We do the heavy lifting with the prospecting for off-market properties, off-market motivated sellers, and then we send those qualified leads to your inbox, to your email box, and then your sole responsibility is just to what? Follow up, talk to the seller, try to get information to qualify the seller's motivation, and so we can provide you with guidance to get the property under contract. So let's talk about your first closing, 2427 Ashland in Baltimore City. So why don't you share with folks your conversations with the seller, how those conversations went, and then how that proceeded from those initial conversations.
Well, when I spoke to the seller, I found that he lived in D.C. or Northern Virginia. And he had properties in Baltimore. He had sold a number of them and had a few more to sell. And initially told me how the property was very close to Hopkins. And through the conversation, the more I talked to him, the more he gave me information. And he said to me, I said to him, well, if we could settle for cash and buy the property as is and hopefully settle in 7 to 10 days, how much would you really take for the property? What's the least you would sell it to us for? And he said, I'd take $400,000. And I started laughing, which I shouldn't have done. And I said, seriously, James, how much would you take for it? He said, I'll take 40. So it was very interesting, because first I knew it wasn't worth $400,000, but he figured, like, what the heck? If I say $400,000, they take it. He's that much more to the good. So we had a very good rapport.
But in the case where you were asking James, what's the least you will accept if we close quickly? Were you reading from a script? Were there some type of guidance you were given by our Deal Finder support?
Well, in the beginning of the lead process, there is a small script that basically walks you through what to say. It's very common. It's just basically a lot of common sense in the things you would ask, but you do have a script that you can follow to help you follow along, and you have to build a rapport with the people. And it's amazing some of the things that we talk about before we even end up getting the appointment. After
you spoke to James, the seller, you got the appointment set, and in your case, you turned it over to one of our closers that went out to the property, took the photos and videos. Then, of course, we took over from there in terms of marketing the property to our network of cash buyers. We were able to find a cash buyer that was interested in buying the property for rental, because it was a turnkey rental. And then why don't you walk people through the process of what unfolded from there?
Well, one of the things I thought was important is, once I set that appointment, is for me to have some rapport with the closer. And I told the closer about the conversation I had with James and some of the finer points that I thought might be beneficial for her to be able to talk to him about. one, the tenants and what I told him and what he told me. So the rapport that I had with him, with the closer, I felt that it just worked very well in being able to complete it.
And sounds good. And so, as with most of our Deal Finders deals, we find these motivated seller leads from our prospecting. In this case, this particular seller was an absentee owner, lived out of state, This was also a retiring investor, an investor that had owned this property over 15 years and was inactive in acquisitions of more properties. So we have, guys, perfected the We Buy Houses funnel. That is, over the years, we found strategies, tools, and techniques of targeting property owners that have these various motivations. We cross-factor them, being out-of-state owner, being a retiring investor, and that's how we found James the seller. And of course, once we passed that information along to Frank, he went ahead and did the rest with getting the information. We used our cash buyer network to find a buyer, and I think you made a pretty good wholesale fee there. It was a total $11,000 wholesale fee, which is not too bad for your first deal. So anything that you want to share with folks that are considering the Deal Finders program?
Well, I'd say the Deal Finder is a very good program. You have to have a feel of liking people. If you're just strictly doing it for the money, it really won't be too enjoyable. It won't be too much fun. But if you like to talk to people and you like to make those phone calls, and some people will not call you back. You'll leave a message. You won't get the call back. And some people you talk to, it just doesn't go anywhere. Some of them want a ridiculous amount of money for the property. So basically, you have to use some common sense and take a look and see if it's a realistic price. And just don't make an appointment just for the sake of making an appointment. You don't get paid just for making an appointment. You get paid for a suspect being turned into a prospect, and a prospect turning into selling his property.
So $11,000 wholesale fee is not too bad on the first deal. So, hey, Frank, thank you for taking the time, and look forward to that second, third, fourth, and fifth wholesale deal. Talk to you soon.
Sure. Happy hunting.
Take care.